She was invisible to him, just another maid in his mansion. Until one night, he caught her breaking into his private library. She begged him not to call the police. Not because she was guilty, but because of what she was hiding. What happens next? No one saw coming. Part 1. The girl with dust on her hands. The Blake estate was the kind of place where silence had weight. Tall marble columns, golden chandeliers, polished floors you could see your soul in, and among all that beauty, she moved like a shadow, quiet, unnoticed, invisible. Her name was Lena. She wasn't supposed to talk to the guests. Wasn't allowed to ask questions. Definitely not allowed near the East Wing, especially not the locked library that belonged to billionaire tech mogul Grayson Blake. But that night, she broke every rule, and everything changed. Lena had been working in the mansion for 4 months. She arrived early, left late, always wore the standard gray uniform, her black curls tied back in a tight bun, her head down. No one noticed her. She liked it that way because she wasn't here for the job. She was here for something else, and tonight was the first step. It was almost midnight when she snuck past the marble staircase and slipped into the corridor of the East Wing. Most staff believed it was off limits because it was under renovation. That was a lie. The truth. Grayson Blake kept things there, private things. Lena had seen glimpses, high-tech locks, biometric scanners, antique volumes sealed behind temperature-controlled glass. And she had a reason to believe that one of those books held the key to her past. Literally, she reached the library door. Her heart thudded. She pulled a tiny, handmade device from her cleaning cart, something she'd built from scrap parts and borrowed. Tech. 3 wires. 1 chance. She pressed it to the lock. It sparked. Clicked. The door opened. She slipped inside. The library was massive, 2 stories tall, filled with rare books, ancient maps, and encrypted manuscripts. It smelled of old leather, sandalwood, and secrets. She went straight to the corner shelf, the one marked Pre-Blake collection. She knew what she was looking for. Her mother used to whisper about a red book with no title, hidden away in a rich man's house. A book that could prove her family's land, now owned by a billion-dollar mining company, was stolen. Grayson Blake's company. She scanned the spines. Nothing. Her fingers were trembling. Until, there, the red book, dusty, untouched, bound in leather that looked a century old. She pulled it down, and that's when the lights turned on. Step away from the shelf. The voice was cold, male, commanding. She turned slowly, and there he was, Grayson Blake. 6'2". Jet black hair. Tailored black shirt. Eyes like steel. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he didn't like. "What are you doing in here?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. He walked closer. "You're one of the cleaning staff." She nodded. He pointed to the book in her hands. "You were stealing from me." "No," she said, finally finding her voice. "I wasn't stealing. I was looking for something." "Oh? In a locked private library? At midnight?" He took the book from her hands. She didn't fight, but then he opened it and found the note tucked inside. His eyes narrowed. "What is this?" Lena swallowed hard and said the words she'd been dreading. That book belonged to my mother. Before your company took our land." Grayson's face changed, slightly, just enough to reveal a flicker of confusion. "Or guilt? Come with me," he said sharply. "But now." He walked out without waiting, and Lena had no choice but to follow. She broke into his library. But what he does next isn't punishment. It's a test. And failure means more than just losing her job. It could cost her everything. Part 2. A test of truth. The walk from the library to Grayson Blake's private study felt like a mile of judgment. Lena's shoes echoed softly on the marble, each step tightening the knot in her chest. Behind them, the grand hallway shimmered in silence. Gold-plated doors passed like reminders. She did not belong here, and yet here she was, a maid caught red-handed, not stealing silver or watches, but history. Her mother's history. The study was dimly lit, quiet except for the soft tick of a grandfather clock. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city skyline, lights blinking like stars on Earth. Grayson walked to his desk, tossed the red leather book down, and turned to face her. "Sit," he said. She hesitated. "Not a request." Saturday, the silence between them wasn't awkward, it was calculated. He was watching her, studying her like a chessboard, waiting to see if she'd flinch. She didn't. He picked up the red book and flipped it open again. Your name is Lina Rivera. 21 years old. Started working here 4 months ago. No prior employment history before that. He raised an eyebrow. You're either hiding something or you're very new to life. She forced herself to meet his gaze. I didn't come here for a job. I came for the book. Clearly, he said. And why exactly would a maid think I have her family's lost heirloom stashed in my personal library? Because your company built a mine on our land. My mother said the original deed was stolen decades ago. She spent her life trying to prove it. Then she got sick. She told me about this book before she died. Grayson tapped the leather cover. And you think this is the deed? I think it's a clue. My mother described it perfectly. And it was in your house. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he opened the book again. She expected words. There were none. Just maps. Old ones. Hand-sketched, yellowed with age, showing land divisions and boundary lines, one in particular circled in faded red ink. At the bottom, Rivera, 1932. Her breath caught. Grayson closed the book. This doesn't prove anything. Her voice cracked. It's a start. He leaned back in his chair. You know I could have you arrested right now. I know. I should. You probably will. His eyes narrowed, but there was no fear in hers, only defiance and something else. Desperation. He stood and paced toward the window, hands in his pockets. The city lights reflected off the glass, casting flickers across his sharp jawline. You know what the media would do with a story like this, he muttered. Billionaire detains poor maid for chasing her dead mother's dream. He shook his head. The optics alone would be a nightmare. Lina's voice came gently. Then don't make it a nightmare. He turned, eyebrow raised. Make it a story worth telling, she said. Grayson walked back to the desk. He placed the book carefully in a drawer, locked it, and slid the key into his pocket. You want a story? He said. Then here's how it starts. He pulled a small card from a side drawer and handed it to her. Be at this address tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. sharp. She looked at it. Blake Corp Headquarters, Legal Affairs Department. What is this? She asked cautiously. A test. She stood. A test of what? He looked at her. Truly looked. If you're telling the truth, we'll find out. And if I'm not? Then I'll destroy every copy of that book and bury your mother's memory so deep even you forget it existed. That night, Lina couldn't sleep. Not from fear. From hope. A terrifying, fragile hope she hadn't felt since before her mother's funeral. She stared at the card in her hand until dawn. At exactly 9 a.m. She walked through the glass doors of Blake Corp, a towering silver fortress downtown, crawling with security and men in suits. The receptionist, a bored woman in red lipstick, looked up. Name? Lina Rivera. A pause, then a surprised blink. You're expected. Elevator to 34. Legal suite? Expected. That felt strange. Lina stepped into the elevator, heart hammering. When the doors opened, a woman in sleek black greeted her immediately. You're with Mr. Blake's case file? I guess. The woman handed her a stack of documents. We need you to identify these parcels and confirm any names your family might have used. Lina stared down. The documents were scanned deeds, handwritten contracts, maps, even court filings, all tied to one region in South America, her mother's village. Grayson hadn't just given her a chance. He had put a legal team on it. Hours passed in that office. She pointed out names, corrected spellings, drew in rivers by memory. She was fed lunch. Offered coffee. No one treated her like a maid. They treated her like someone important. By 3 p.m. she was escorted to a small glass conference room, and there he was, Grayson Blake, waiting. She sat slowly. Well? She asked. He folded his hands. We cross-referenced the book's maps with our mineral extraction blueprints. You were right. One of our oldest mines sits directly on what appears to be legally Rivera land. Lina's mouth fell open. I'm not going to insult you by pretending this is easy, he continued. But I have a proposal. She blinked. A proposal? I can't undo what's been done. But I can offer a legal settlement, a trust in your family's name, educational funding, restoration of the original village land, and full recognition that it was mishandled. Lena was frozen, and one more thing, he said. You'll head the Rivera Foundation. We'll fund it. You'll lead it. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? He paused. Then, quietly, because your mother deserved better. She came looking for justice. What she found was power. But power comes at a price, and someone in Grayson's world isn't ready to let go of the past. And they're watching. Part 3. The shadows behind the glass. Lena stood in front of the Blake Corp skyscraper with the weight of the world in her hands. Just 24 hours ago, she had been sweeping floors, her hands raw with soap and silence. Now, she was holding the beginning of justice, a legal agreement sealed and signed with her name printed boldly across the top. The Rivera Foundation. It was more than a settlement. More than money or recognition. It was her mother's voice finally being heard. It was history finally being corrected, but with that victory came the creeping sensation that someone, somewhere, had just lost, and they wouldn't take it quietly. Inside the limo back to the estate, Lena sat across from Grayson in silence. Not awkward silence, thoughtful. He watched her, hands folded over his knee, his expression unreadable. I expected you to cry, he said. She glanced at him. I cried all last night. He smiled faintly. Fair. She turned to the window, then hesitated. Why are you doing this? Really? He shrugged. Maybe because I have a conscience. She raised an eyebrow. Billionaires don't usually. His lips twitched. Well, maybe I'm the exception. The rest of the ride passed without words, but what neither of them knew was that a man in a black SUV, 2 cars behind, was watching, and he wasn't smiling. Later that night, the estate felt different now. Lena wasn't sure if it was the knowledge that she'd won something so big, or the fact that Grayson himself had told the entire staff to treat her as a guest, not a cleaner. She didn't know what to do with that power. She missed the broom in her hand. It gave her something to do. A purpose. A disguise. Now, without it, she felt exposed, especially as she stepped into the library again, this time with permission. She traced her fingers over the spines of the books, eyes scanning for more red bindings, more clues. Her mother had believed this mansion held secrets, and Lena was beginning to believe it too. A soft creak echoed behind her. She turned sharply. Grayson stood in the doorway. Can't stay away? He asked. She smiled faintly. I grew up in a 2-room hut. This place still feels like a dream. He nodded. I grew up in a castle. It still feels like a prison. That surprised her. He stepped closer. Most people think money solves everything. But money just replaces one set of chains with another. She studied him. And what are your chains? He looked at the shelves and didn't answer. Instead, he changed the subject. I looked deeper into your mother's village. There's more than just land there. There's untouched mineral deposits, rare ones. If this gets out, it already has, said a voice from the shadows. They turned. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped into the light. Tall, pale, with slicked back hair and a cold smile, Grayson tensed immediately. Leon. Lena felt a chill crawl down her spine. Leon chuckled. Didn't expect to see your little maid again, did you? Much less, leading a legal case against us. Grayson stepped forward. You're not supposed to be here. Leon held up a keycard. Still have access, remember? You gave it to me. Back when we were partners. Lena's heart dropped. This was the man watching. Grayson's jaw clenched. You're not part of this company anymore. But I built it with you, Leon snapped. And now you're handing over land worth billions to some girl with a sob story? It's more than a story, Lena said, voice firm. It's the truth. Leon scoffed. You're clever. I'll give you that. The whole Maid with a hidden past thing brilliant. But this isn't over. He turned to Grayson. Walk away from this, Gray, or you'll regret it. Then he was gone, just like that. A ghost through the shelves. Grayson slammed the library door shut. Lena looked at him. Who was that? My ex-partner. We built Blake Corp together, but he was too ruthless even for this world. She swallowed. And now he's a threat. He looked at her. I should have seen this coming. The moment I gave you power, I gave you enemies. That night, Lena didn't sleep, not because she was afraid, but because she was planning. The next morning she showed up to Blake Corp in a sharp black suit borrowed from Grayson's stylist. She looked like a board member because today the Rivera Foundation had its first official meeting. Media crews were already gathering outside. News had broken, the billionaire who gave back stolen land, but inside the boardroom it was chaos. Leon had filed an injunction, claiming the Red Book was forged. Grayson slammed the file onto the table. This is ridiculous. Lena read the paper carefully. He's trying to claim my mother faked the documents before she died. Grayson ran a hand through his hair. He's trying to stall. Or scare us. The legal advisor nodded. We need proof. Something stronger. Something irrefutable. Lena thought for a moment. Then she stood and whispered, I know where it is. Back at the estate she ran to the attic, the one place even the maids weren't allowed. She had overheard months ago that Grayson's grandfather kept souvenirs there. Trophies, journals, obsessions, and maybe something else. She rifled through old trunks. Dust choked the air. Spiders danced between broken photo frames, and then she found a wooden box marked Rivera. Confidential. Her hands shook. Inside were 3 letters, one addressed to Grayson's grandfather from Lena's great-grandfather. Land exchange. In good faith, but never signed. She gasped. It proved the deal was never complete. The land was never legally transferred. It was still hers. That evening, she walked back into Grayson's study with the box in hand. He opened it. His eyes scanned the pages, and for the first time, she saw him smile like a man who had just won a war. This changes everything. She found the missing proof. But just when the truth is ready to rise, someone moves in the shadows to bury it permanently. Part 4. Buried Truths, Rising Shadows. The documents Lena discovered in the attic felt like a torch cutting through fog. They weren't just old letters, they were legal gold. Proof the Rivera land had never been lawfully signed away despite generations of exploitation. 3 yellowed papers signed by her great-grandfather, stamped and dated, but missing one thing, the counter-signature. Grayson studied the papers as if they were ancient. Treasure maps. You realize, he said slowly, this doesn't just prove your family never gave the land away. He looked up at her, voice low. It proves my family stole it. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Not Blake Corp. Not the lawyers. His blood. His name. His legacy. Grayson sat down hard, elbows on his knees. For a man so used to being in control, he suddenly looked haunted. She knelt beside him. You didn't do this. No, he murmured. But everything I've built stands on top of it. Lena placed her hand on his. This isn't about blame, she whispered. It's about fixing it. He met her eyes and nodded, but outside that room someone else was already plotting to ensure the truth never made it further. The next morning, trouble at the press conference. Blake Corp's main conference hall was buzzing. Journalists, investors, and high-ranking executives filled every seat. Banners of the Rivera Foundation hung across the stage. A bold step. A public admission. Lena adjusted the mic nervously as she stood beside Grayson. I never thought I'd be standing here, she began, voice shaking slightly. My mother died chasing justice. This morning, we take a step toward giving it to her and to everyone like her. The crowd began clapping, but then a loud voice interrupted. Excuse me. All eyes turned. Leon stepped forward, flanked by 2 sharp-suited attorneys. I have documents that prove this woman is perpetrating a fraud. Murmurs exploded through the crowd. Cameras pivoted. Questions flew. Grayson stepped between Lena and Leon. Get out. Leon ignored him. You've all been manipulated by a maid with a sad story and a few convenient findings. He pulled out a folder. Here are forensic reports claiming the signatures on those documents are forged. And her employment records? Faked. She never applied through the standard vetting system. Lena's heart slammed in her chest. Grayson glared. You forged those yourself. Can you prove that? The room erupted in noise. Backstage, panic and paranoia. Grayson slammed the dressing room door shut. They bought it, Lena whispered. He twisted the whole story. Grayson paced like a man on fire. I should have seen this coming. He was always 2 moves ahead. Always playing dirty. Lena gritted her teeth. We have the originals. The box. The letters. We can prove they're real. Not if he discredits you, Grayson said. The moment you look like a liar, nothing you present matters. Lena grabbed his arm. Then let's find the truth that can't be ignored. Grayson turned to her. What do you mean? She pulled out her phone. Scrolling. Searching. My great-grandfather, he used to keep ledgers. He was meticulous. He might have recorded everything, especially that failed land deal. Grayson blinked. Where? There's a trunk in my old village church. I remember seeing it as a child. If it's still there, it could have signatures, letters, even correspondence from your grandfather. Grayson nodded. 48 hours later, South America, the jungle heat wrapped around them like a second skin. Lena stepped onto the cracked steps of her childhood church. The paint had peeled and the bell tower was now home to birds, not faith, but inside it smelled the same, of old wood, candle wax, and memory. An old priest greeted them with surprise. Lena? Is that you? Father Mateo, she whispered. He hugged her tightly. You came back. I need your help. Minutes later, they were dragging the rusted trunk from beneath the altar. Inside, books, binders, letters, receipts, and then a brown envelope marked Rivera Blake. Her hands trembled. Inside was a ledger handwritten in black ink with a dated log of every meeting her great-grandfather ever held with Grayson's grandfather, including one entry. February 14, 1955, refused to sign over deed. Blake grew angry. Said he'd get it anyway. Warned me not to tell anyone. Lena held the page like it was a holy relic. Grayson read it, then looked at her. This will destroy my grandfather's legacy. Lena's eyes filled. And free mine. Return to Blake Corp, the final move. They landed the next morning. This time, no press. No crowd, just the boardroom. Leon was already there, smug. Back for round 2. He sneered. Grayson set the brown envelope down on the table. Here's your round 2. The legal team opened the ledger. Read. Blinked. Whispered. This is devastating, one lawyer said. Leon's face paled. These were authenticated yesterday by a third-party historian, Grayson added coldly. Your grandfather blackmailed hers. We have the full record. With photos. Leon stood up. You're bluffing. No, Grayson said. I'm ending you. Within hours, Leon's attorneys backed away. His investors pulled out. The board voted to revoke all his privileges, and Lena was offered full legal ownership of her family's land with interest, not just the land, but a seat at Blake Corp's new foundation. A voice. A future. That night Grayson and Lena stood on the mansion balcony. The stars above blinked down like proud witnesses. You did it, he said. No, she said softly. We did it. He turned to her. So, what now? She smiled. Now we build. He stepped closer. You know, my grandfather always said power corrupts. But watching you, I think maybe it can also heal. She looked up at him. Only if it's given to the right people. The silence between them was warm, not empty. He leaned in, but stopped inches away. Waiting. She smiled, then closed the gap, and somewhere, Far below, the lights of the city flickered. A new story had begun. Lena may have won the battle, but as her name rises in the media, not everyone is ready to see a maid become a mogul. Power brings enemies, and one of them is closer than she thinks. Part 5. The price of power. Lena was no longer the maid who scrubbed marble floors while humming old folk songs. She was now Lena Rivera, co-founder of the Rivera Foundation, heir to a legacy once stolen, and the woman who helped dismantle a corporate lie generations deep. But power, she was beginning to learn, didn't just reveal your enemies. It created new ones. Morning headlines. Lena blinked awake in her new apartment, still inside Grayson's estate, but on the top floor overlooking the city skyline. A gentle chime from her phone lit up the room. She yawned, grabbed it, and froze. Maid turned mogul, real or revenge? Her name was trending. So was her past. Someone had leaked everything. Where she grew up, her mother's death, her father's rumored involvement with rural resistance groups. The internet was tearing her apart. One article read, "Did Lena Rivera con billionaire Grayson Blake using an old sob story?" Another, "From dust to diamonds, the maid with a motive." In the dining hall, Grayson looked furious. "I'm tracing the leak," he said, scrolling furiously. "This is a smear campaign. No doubt about it." Lena swallowed. "It's Leon, isn't it?" Grayson looked up. He was ousted. "But that doesn't mean he's powerless." She sat down across from him. "They're trying to discredit me." He nodded. "And ruin the foundation before it can gain traction." Lena leaned forward. "Then let's fight back. Show them what we're really about." But just as she spoke, a staff member entered, pale and nervous. "Sir, there's someone here to see Miss Rivera." An unexpected visitor. In the marble foyer stood an older woman in a sleek gray suit. Sharp eyes, stiff posture, voice like velvet over broken glass. "I'm Eleanor Wren," she said, offering her hand. "Director of Public Image at Blake Corp." Lena shook it cautiously. Eleanor smiled politely. "I've been asked by the board to help refine your presence." "Refine?" Lena echoed. "Yes," Eleanor said smoothly. "You've done wonderfully, of course. But the public loves a clean narrative. One that doesn't include too much hardship." Lena blinked. "You want me to hide where I came from?" "Not hide," Eleanor said. "Simplify." Grayson stepped forward. "We're not changing who she is." Eleanor turned to him. "With all due respect, Grayson, your stake in this is complicated." Lena narrowed her eyes. "So what? You'll tell me how to smile? How to talk? What parts of my life I'm allowed to share?" Eleanor smiled again, more tightly this time. "Exactly." The war behind the curtains. For the next week, Lena's life became a press tour. Interview after interview. Carefully crafted speeches. Rehearsed nods and measured words, but behind the smiles, her heart twisted. This wasn't why she fought. This wasn't what her mother died for, Grayson noticed. One evening, after a particularly fake charity gala, he found her sitting barefoot in the garden, staring up at the moon. "You looked amazing tonight," he said gently. She didn't respond. He sat beside her. "Talk to me." Lena bit her lip. "I'm tired of playing their game." "You're not," he said. "You're playing your game. And winning." "No," she whispered. "I'm not. Because the girl on TV isn't me. And the woman in charge of that foundation, she's becoming a symbol, not a person." Grayson was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "Do you want out?" She turned to him, eyes wide. "No. I want in. All the way in. But on my terms." He nodded slowly. "Then let's take control." A dangerous offer. The next morning, Grayson arranged a private meeting with Eleanor and 2 board members. Lena walked in, not in heels, but boots. Not in a gown, but a blazer over her mother's old scarf. "I've made my decision," she said. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Yes. I'm not hiding where I came from. In fact, I'm going to tell the entire story." In my words, no edits. The board members frowned. That could backfire, it could inspire, Lena interrupted. Grayson added, we're done playing defense. From now on, we lead. Eleanor looked from Grayson to Lena. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. You know, she said, you remind me of myself 20 years ago. Then she walked out, but not everyone was applauding that night. Someone threw a rock through Lena's window. Attached was a note, go back to the dirt you crawled out of. Grayson's security tightened. But Lena refused to be moved or silenced. Instead, she announced a live broadcast, 1 hour, uncensored. Her full story. No corporate gloss, just the truth. The broadcast the world watched. Her face filled every screen. She spoke of growing up without water. Of her mother coughing through the nights. Of scrubbing this very estate with hands cracked and bleeding, and then of discovering the truth. The red books. The old letters. The hidden ledgers. I didn't come here to steal anything, she said, voice steady. I came here to take back what was stolen. Grayson stood behind her, silent, proud, watching. The internet exploded. Millions shared it. A hashtag trended. Hashtag Rivera Rising. But just as the world embraced her, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She answered. A cold voice spoke. You think you've won. But you don't know the half of what your mother gave up. Or who she gave it up to. Lena froze. Who is this? The call ended. She looked at Grayson. Something's wrong. He stepped closer. What did they say? She looked at him, eyes wide. My mother, she didn't just lose the land. A whisper of memory slid through her mind, a name half remembered. A rumor her mother once spoke in fear. She may have lost more than that. Grayson stiffened. What do you mean? Lena clutched her phone. I think she gave something up to protect me. Just when Lena reclaims her power, she's thrown into a mystery deeper than land or legacy. What did her mother hide? And who still wants it buried? Part 6. The price of truth. Lena couldn't sleep that night. The call, the chilling words, your mother, she didn't just lose the land, kept replaying in her mind like an endless loop, each repetition tightening the knot in her stomach. What did her mother give up? And why had she kept it hidden from Lena for so long? Grayson lay next to her in the bed they shared in the penthouse suite at the estate, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, oblivious to the storm swirling in Lena's thoughts. She stared at the ceiling, trying to block out the silence of the room. The cool night air through the open window did nothing to calm her. Her mother had always been a quiet force in her life, strong, silent, protective. But now Lena was beginning to realize that maybe her mother hadn't been protecting her from the world, but from something darker, deeper. Something she wasn't ready to face. Lena glanced over at Grayson, his face bathed in the moonlight, calm and sleep. He had been there for her through everything, the rise of the Rivera Foundation, the unveiling of her past, the storm of public opinion. But now, as the stakes grew higher, Lena couldn't help but feel like she was sinking into something much bigger than either of them could handle. She needed answers. Lena's fingers hovered over her phone. That call, it had been a warning. Whoever it was, they knew something about her mother that even Lena hadn't uncovered. She had to find out more. The next morning, she barely touched her breakfast, her mind racing. She was still processing the cryptic message from the anonymous caller when Grayson walked into the dining room, his face tight with concern. I've been thinking about what you said last night, he said, his voice low. About your mother. I think we need to dig deeper. Find out who's behind this. Lena nodded, her stomach a heavy weight. I agree. But we need to be careful. Whoever's behind this doesn't want me to know the truth. Grayson leaned against the table, studying her with a mix of concern and resolve. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone in this. Lena felt a flicker of gratitude. She had always known Grayson was more than just her partner in business. He was her partner in everything. But this was different. This was personal, I'm going to find the truth, she said quietly, her voice filled with determination. And nothing, not even the board or Blake Corp, will stop me. But Grayson's eyes darkened. There's something else, Lena. I've been digging into your family's history. Some of what we found, it doesn't add up. Lena's breath caught. What do you mean? There's a connection between your mother and someone high up in the Blake Corp hierarchy, he said, his voice tense. Someone powerful enough to control what's buried. Someone who might still be pulling strings to keep your past locked away. Lena's heart skipped a beat. Blake Corp, her mind raced. Had her mother been involved with someone from that company? Had they played a role in her family's downfall? Grayson stood up, pacing now. I'm going to set up a meeting with a few contacts. We need to know exactly what your mother was involved in, and who still has a vested interest in making sure the truth never comes to light. Lena felt her pulse quicken. I need to know, Grayson. I have to know what my mother sacrificed. As he left the room to make the call, Lena's fingers danced nervously across her phone. There was one person she could turn to, one person who might know something about her mother's past. Her mother's old friend, Victor. He had been a quiet, unassuming figure in Lena's life, a man who had known her mother before everything changed. Before the estate, before the power and the wealth. Lena grabbed her coat, determination setting her jaw. If anyone knew what had happened all those years ago, it was Victor. The meeting. Lena's heart pounded as she approached the small, dimly lit cafe where Victor had agreed to meet. She didn't even know if he would be willing to talk. He had always been reserved, careful about what he said. But there was no other option. Victor was sitting in a corner booth when Lena walked in, his weathered face half hidden behind a newspaper. He looked up as she approached, his eyes betraying nothing. You came, he said softly, almost as if he had been expecting her all along. Lena sat down across from him, keeping her voice low. Victor, I need your help. It's about my mother. Something has come to light, and I need to know everything you can tell me about her past. Victor folded the newspaper, his fingers trembling slightly. Your mother never wanted you to know the truth, Lena. She protected you from it. I know, Lena whispered. But I need to understand. What did she give up? What was so dangerous that she couldn't tell me? Victor paused, as if weighing his words carefully. He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. You think you know the whole story, he said. But there's more. Much more. Your mother was part of a larger game. A game that started long before Blake Corp ever came into the picture. She had ties to powerful people. People who would do anything to keep certain secrets buried. Lena's pulse raced. Who? Who were these people? Victor's eyes darkened and he looked around the cafe as if making sure no one was listening. I can't say everything, Lena. Not yet. But there's one name you need to know. Eleanor Wren. Lena's breath caught. Eleanor Wren. The name sent a shiver down her spine. The same woman who had tried to mold her image into something more palatable to the public. The same woman who had been part of the team at Blake Corp. What's her connection? Lena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Victor leaned back, his face grim. Eleanor Wren isn't just a PR director, Lena. She's a player. And she's been playing a dangerous game with your mother for years. You need to be careful. She's the last person you want to cross. Lena's mind whirled. Eleanor Wren had been involved with her mother? And now she was controlling her public image. What do I do now? Lena asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. Victor's eyes softened for the first time. Find the truth, but be prepared. Some truths are darker than you can imagine. And some people, they'll do anything to make sure the past stays buried. Part 6. The price of truth. Lena couldn't sleep that night. The call, the chilling words. Your mother. She didn't just lose the land. Kept replaying in her mind like an endless loop. Each repetition tightening the knot in her stomach. What did her mother give up? And why had she kept it hidden from Lena for so long? Grayson lay next to her in the bed they shared in the penthouse suite at the estate, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, oblivious to the storm swirling in Lena's thoughts. She stared at the ceiling, trying to block out the silence of the room. The cool night air through the open window did nothing to calm her. Her mother had always been a quiet force in her life, strong, silent, protective. But now Lena was beginning to realize that maybe her mother hadn't been protecting her from the world, but from something darker, deeper, something she wasn't ready to face. Lena glanced over at Grayson, his face bathed in the moonlight, calm in sleep. He had been there for her through everything, the rise of the Rivera Foundation, the unveiling of her past, the storm of public opinion. But now, as the stakes grew higher, Lena couldn't help but feel like she was sinking into something much bigger than either of them could handle. She needed answers. Lena's fingers hovered over her phone. That call. It had been a warning. Whoever it was, they knew something about her mother that even Lena hadn't uncovered. She had to find out more. The next morning, she barely touched her breakfast, her mind racing. She was still processing the cryptic message from the anonymous caller when Grayson walked into the dining room, his face tight with concern. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," he said, his voice low. "About your mother. I think we need to dig deeper. Find out who's behind this." Lena nodded, her stomach a heavy weight. "I agree, but we need to be careful. Whoever's behind this doesn't want me to know the truth." Grayson leaned against the table, studying her with a mix of concern and resolve. "We'll figure this out together. You're not alone in this." Lena felt a flicker of gratitude. She had always known Grayson was more than just her partner in business. He was her partner in everything. But this was different. This was personal. "I'm going to find the truth," she said quietly, her voice filled with determination. "And nothing, not even the board or Blake Corp, will stop me." But Grayson's eyes darkened. "There's something else, Lena. I've been digging into your family's history. Some of what we found, it doesn't add up." Lena's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "There's a connection between your mother and someone high up in the Blake Corp hierarchy," he said, his voice tense. "Someone powerful enough to control what's buried. Someone who might still be pulling strings to keep your past locked away." Lena's heart skipped a beat. Blake Corp. Her mind raced. Had her mother been involved with someone from that company? Had they played a role in her family's downfall? Grayson stood up, pacing now. "I'm going to set up a meeting with a few contacts. We need to know exactly what your mother was involved in, and who still has a vested interest in making sure the truth never comes to light." Lena felt her pulse quicken. "I need to know, Grayson. I have to know what my mother sacrificed." As he left the room to make the call, Lena's fingers danced nervously across her phone. There was one person she could turn to, one person who might know something about her mother's past. Her mother's old friend, Victor. He had been a quiet, unassuming figure in Lena's life, a man who had known her mother before everything changed, before the estate, before the power and the wealth. Lena grabbed her coat, determination setting her jaw. If anyone knew what had happened all those years ago, it was Victor. The meeting Lena's heart pounded as she approached the small, dimly lit cafe where Victor had agreed to meet. She didn't even know if he would be willing to talk. He had always been reserved, careful about what he said. But there was no other option. Victor was sitting in a corner booth when Lena walked in, his weathered face half hidden behind a newspaper. He looked up as she approached, his eyes betraying nothing. "You came," he said softly, almost as if he had been expecting her all along. Lena sat down across from him, keeping her voice low. "Victor, I need your help. It's about my mother. Something has come to light, and I need to know everything you can tell me about her past." Victor folded the newspaper, his fingers trembling slightly. "Your mother never wanted you to know the truth, Lena. She protected you from it." "I know," Lena whispered, "but I need to understand. What did she give up? What was so dangerous that she couldn't tell me?" Victor paused, as if weighing his words carefully. He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You think you know the whole story," he said, "but there's more, much more. Your mother was part of a larger game, a game that started long before Blake Corp ever came into the picture. She had ties to powerful people, people who would do anything to keep certain secrets buried." Lena's pulse raced. Who? Who were these people? Victor's eyes darkened, and he looked around the cafe, as if making sure no one was listening. "I can't say everything, Lena. Not yet. But there's one name you need to know. Eleanor Wren." Lena's breath caught. Eleanor Wren. The name sent a shiver down her spine. The same woman who had tried to mold her image into something more palatable to the public. The same woman who had been part of the team at Blake Corp. "What's her connection?" Lena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Victor leaned back, his face grim. "Eleanor Wren isn't just a PR director, Lena. She's a player. And she's been playing a dangerous game with your mother for years. You need to be careful. She's the last person you want to cross." Lena's mind whirled. Eleanor Wren had been involved with her mother, and now she was controlling her public image? "What do I do now?" Lena asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. Victor's eyes softened for the first time. "Find the truth, but be prepared. Some truths are darker than you can imagine. And some people, they'll do anything to make sure the past stays buried." Part 7. The unraveling. Lena couldn't shake the feeling of dread as she walked away from the cafe, the weight of Victor's words settling heavily on her chest. Eleanor Wren. The name echoed in her mind, like a warning bell that had finally rung clear. If what Victor said was true, then everything she thought she knew about her mother's past was a lie. The truth, she realized, wasn't just buried. It had been deliberately erased. Lena's thoughts raced as she made her way back to the estate, each step heavier than the last. What kind of game had her mother been playing? And why had she never mentioned Eleanor? Why had she kept her ties to Blake Corp a secret? When she stepped into the penthouse, Grayson was waiting, his sharp eyes immediately locking onto her face. He could tell something had shifted. He always could. "You found something?" he said, his voice steady. But there was a tightness in his jaw that told her he was already bracing for bad news. Lena took a deep breath, swallowing the lump that had formed in her throat. "Victor told me something important." Grayson raised an eyebrow, leaning in. "What?" Lena hesitated, but then the words spilled out before she could stop them. "My mother was involved with Eleanor Wren." She was tied to Blake Corp long before I even knew about it. And now Eleanor's trying to control my image, my story. It's not just about the foundation. She's part of something much bigger. Grayson's expression darkened. Eleanor Wren? That's unexpected. Lena nodded, trying to calm the growing anxiety in her chest. Victor warned me that Eleanor is dangerous. She's been playing a game with my mother for years. And I think she's trying to control me now, too. Grayson stood up, running a hand through his hair. We can't let her dictate your future, Lena. Not after everything you've fought for. If she's trying to manipulate you, we need to go on the offensive. Get ahead of her before she pulls the strings any tighter. Lena shook her head. I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Everyone has their own agenda. Grayson, this goes beyond the foundation. It's personal. And I don't know who I can count on anymore. There was a long silence between them, filled with the unspoken weight of her words. Finally, Grayson spoke, his voice soft but firm. I'm with you, Lena, no matter what. But if we're going to take on Eleanor and Blake Corp, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. We need to go deeper. Lena met his gaze, her resolve hardening. Then we dig. We dig until we find everything. And once we do, we expose it all. The plan begins. The following days were a blur of late nights, cryptic phone calls, and endless digging into Blake Corp's tangled web. Grayson's team of lawyers and private investigators had already been working on tracking down every lead, but now the hunt for answers had become personal. Lena couldn't sleep. The weight of the past and the looming shadows of Blake Corp kept her up. Each new discovery felt like another piece of the puzzle, but the bigger picture remained elusive. One evening, after a particularly frustrating round of meetings, Grayson sat across from her in the study, his face creased with concentration. We've uncovered something, he said, looking up from his papers. It's small, but it's a lead. A confidential memo from Blake Corp's early days. Your mother's name is on it, along with Eleanor Wren's. It's dated around the time your mother started working here. But the memo is incomplete. The rest of it is missing. Lena's pulse quickened. A memo? From that time? Grayson nodded, pushing the papers toward her. We're trying to trace the rest of it, but this could be the key to understanding what happened. Whatever your mother was involved in, it's tied directly to Blake Corp. And Eleanor. She's not just the public relations director. She's a key player. Lena stared at the documents, her mind racing. What had her mother been mixed up in? And why had she kept it a secret from her? Before she could say anything more, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it. Unknown, I hope you're ready for the next step. It's time for you to know the truth. Meet me at the old pier, midnight. Lena looked at Grayson, fear flashing in her eyes. This could be it. This could be the person who's been pulling the strings behind all of this. Grayson stood up, determination in his gaze. We're not going alone. I'll be there with you. Lena hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. Who could it be? And more importantly, could she trust them? But there was no time to waste. The clock was ticking, and the deeper they dug, the more dangerous this mystery became. The pier at midnight. The night was dark, the air thick with the scent of salt and fog as Lena and Grayson arrived at the old pier. The faint sound of waves crashing against the docks echoed in the distance. It was an eerie place to meet someone, almost too perfect for a clandestine exchange. Lena's pulse quickened with every step as they moved toward the end of the pier, the shadows stretching long in the moonlight. Grayson kept close behind her, his hand hovering near his jacket where his concealed weapon was tucked away. When they reached the farthest point of the pier, Lena stopped and looked around. No one was in sight. The only sounds were the waves and the occasional creak of the weathered wood beneath their feet, and then she saw them, a figure standing in the shadows, watching them. Lena's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice sharp, demanding. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a woman dressed in a dark coat, her face partially obscured by a scarf. But Lena could see enough to recognize the eyes. It was Eleanor Wren. "Eleanor?" Lena whispered, her heart sinking. Eleanor smiled, a cold, knowing smile. "I knew you'd come looking for answers, Lena. But what if I told you the truth isn't what you expect?" Part 8. The truth unfolds. The moment was surreal. There, standing in front of her in the moonlight, was the woman who had been orchestrating everything from behind the scenes, Eleanor Wren. The woman who had shaped Lena's public persona, who had manipulated the media, and who, until now, had been just another player in the corporate game. But now, in the cold silence of the night, Eleanor was no longer just an image on a screen. She was flesh and blood, and she had something to say. Eleanor's smile was almost pitying as she looked at Lena. "I imagine you're shocked to see me here. But I knew you'd come. You're just like your mother, always digging, always looking for the truth, no matter the cost." Lena's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. "I've come this far, and I'm not afraid of you. Whatever game you're playing, I'm done being your pawn." Eleanor's eyes flickered, a hint of something darker behind them. "It's not a game, Lena. And you were never a pawn. You were always meant to be the queen." Lena's confusion deepened. "What does that mean? What are you talking about?" Eleanor took a step closer, her voice lowering. "You really don't know, do you? Your mother, she was more than just a maid. She wasn't some helpless victim who lost everything. No, Lena. She was a player in a much larger game. She was part of a plan, my plan." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "You're lying." Eleanor shook her head slowly, as if savoring the moment. "Am I? Your mother was an ambitious woman, you see. She wanted more than the simple life she had. She dreamed of something bigger, but she didn't have the means to make it happen on her own. That's where Blake Corp and I came in." Grayson stepped forward, his tone tense. "What do you mean? What kind of plan?" Eleanor looked at him with a trace of amusement. "Ah, the loyal boyfriend. Don't worry, Grayson, this doesn't concern you yet." She turned back to Lena, her expression serious. "Your mother made a deal with me years ago. She agreed to work with Blake Corp not just as a maid, but as someone who would help us control the flow of land, resources, and power in the region. In exchange, she would have the chance to rise above her station, to give her daughter a life you never could have imagined." Lena felt as if the ground was falling out from beneath her. "My mother, she wasn't just a victim? She made a deal with you." "Yes," Eleanor said, her voice cold. "She did. And in return, Blake Corp gave her everything she ever wanted. Wealth, power, a chance to secure her future and the future of her daughter. But she didn't understand the cost of that deal, not until it was too late. She got too comfortable, too entangled in the web we built. And when she wanted out, it was too late." Lena felt dizzy, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her chest. Her mother had made a deal with Blake Corp? And she had never known? But why lie to me? Why keep all of this a secret? Lena demanded, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. Eleanor's eyes flickered with something resembling sympathy. "Because she wanted to protect you. She knew that if you ever found out the truth, you would hate her. You would see her as a traitor, and she couldn't bear to see that happen. So she erased the past. She hid it from you, and in doing so, she gave you the life you have now. She gave you the chance to make your own choices. But now you're here, Lena. You're digging, and you're unraveling everything. And that's exactly what I wanted." Lena's mind was reeling. "You wanted me to find out? Why?" Eleanor took a step back, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. Because you were always meant to find out. I've been watching you, Lena, all this time. You think you're in control, but you've always been part of the plan. Your rise, your foundation, everything. It was never just about giving people a voice. It was about creating the perfect storm. A storm that would pull you right back into the fold. Grayson stepped in front of Lena, his voice hard. What are you talking about? You've been manipulating her. Us. This whole time. Eleanor's smile widened. Manipulating? No. I've been guiding you, Lena, just like I guided your mother. I knew you'd want to take back what was lost. But I also knew you'd come to realize that the only way to truly secure your future was to join me, to really take your place at the top. Lena felt a surge of anger rise within her. I won't be part of your plan. I won't be your pawn. I came here to take back what was stolen, not to play some sick game with you and Blake Corp. Eleanor's eyes grew colder. Oh, but you already are, Lena. You always have been. You can't escape this. You are Blake Corp's future. You're just too blinded by your own ideals to see it. Grayson stepped forward, his expression hardening. We're done listening to you. Whatever game you're playing ends now. Eleanor's smile faltered, and for a moment, a flicker of something darker, passed through her eyes. You think this is over, don't you? You think you've won. But this is only the beginning. She turned and started to walk away, disappearing into the shadows, leaving Lena and Grayson standing there, stunned as they made their way back to the estate. The silence between them was deafening. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but they still didn't have the full picture. Lena's mother had been part of something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. And now, Eleanor Wren was dangling the truth in front of her like a carrot on a string. I can't believe it, Lena whispered, her voice hollow. My mother was part of that world. She made a deal with Blake Corp. I never knew. All this time I thought she was a victim. I thought she was trying to protect me. Grayson took her hand, his voice soft but firm. Lena, your mother did what she thought was best. She wanted to protect you. But now it's your turn to protect the truth. Whatever Eleanor and Blake Corp are planning, we're gonna stop it. Together. Lena nodded, her resolve hardening. We will. I'll make sure of it. But as they walked into the estate, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far bigger than themselves. Something that, once set in motion, could never be undone. Part 9. The final reckoning. The next few days felt like they were dragging on forever. Every corner of Lena's world had been turned upside down, and each new discovery only added to the weight on her shoulders. But in the midst of all the confusion and fear, one thing was crystal clear. She had no choice but to finish what her mother had started, to uncover the full truth, and to make sure that nothing, not even the ghosts of the past, could stand in her way. Grayson stayed by her side, as resolute and determined as she was. They couldn't afford to take another misstep. With Eleanor's threats hanging in the air like a dark cloud, they knew they needed to act fast. But there was something bigger at play, something they hadn't fully comprehended until now. Lena had always believed her mother's fight was one for justice. She had spent her whole life chasing the idea of reclaiming lost land, lost power. But now she understood it was never just about land. It was about legacy, control, and power, a power that stretched far beyond the Blake Corp empire, a power that could change the world. The final plan. They gathered their resources, every shred of evidence, every piece of the puzzle. Grayson's team worked tirelessly, tracking down every last piece of Lena's mother's past, while Lena sifted through old letters, family records, and legal documents that her mother had kept hidden. And when they finally put it all together, it was like a fire had been lit beneath them. The truth was within their grasp, but they weren't the only ones who knew it. Eleanor Wren wasn't just trying to control Lena's image. She was trying to control the narrative of the entire Blake Corp empire. She'd used Lena's mother to build an empire, and now she was setting her sights on Lena. The foundation, the land, the resources, they were all just pieces in Eleanor's game. But Lena wouldn't let her win. "You know what we need to do," Grayson said, standing beside her in the study. "We need to expose her, not just for what she's done to you, but for everything she's been hiding. The people need to know the truth." Lena nodded, her resolve unwavering. "It's time. We take everything she's built and tear it down. If I'm going to be part of this world, I'm doing it on my own terms. No more lies. No more games." Grayson's eyes shone with pride as he looked at her. "We'll fight this battle together, but we'll do it right. We'll make sure no one can ever silence the truth again." They worked through the night, piecing together the final details of their plan. By morning, they were ready. The showdown, it was time for the final confrontation. They had set up a live broadcast, one that would reach millions of viewers. Lena was going to expose everything: Eleanor, Blake Corp, and the truth about her mother's role in it all. No more press tours, no more staged interviews. This time, the world would hear it from Lena herself. When the cameras rolled, Lena stood before them, her heart pounding but her voice steady. She had never been more certain of anything in her life. "Good evening," she began, her voice calm but filled with intensity. "My name is Lena Rivera, and tonight I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth about my mother, the truth about Blake Corp, and the truth about the legacy I was born into." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "For years, I've been told what to say, what to believe, what parts of my life are allowed to be seen and heard. But no more. I am not here to be a symbol. I am here to tell you who I really am. I am not a maid-turned-mogul. I am not some charity case. I am the heir to a legacy that has been hidden in the shadows for far too long." The camera zoomed in as her words echoed through the silence. "My mother, Isabel Rivera, was not just a victim. She was a fighter. She made choices, difficult, painful choices, because she believed that, in the end, she could protect me. She was involved with Blake Corp, but not as an employee. She was part of something much bigger. And when she wanted out, they didn't let her go. They buried the truth, and they buried her." Lena's eyes hardened. "But I'm not my mother, and I will not let the lies stand. I will not let Eleanor Wren control my story. The truth is this: Blake Corp isn't just a company. It's a machine, a system built on deception, manipulation, and greed. And Eleanor Wren is at the heart of it." The camera cut to a shot of the Blake Corp headquarters, an imposing building standing tall in the city skyline. "Tonight, I'm making it clear. I am taking back my story. I am taking back my future. And I will expose every secret, every lie, until the truth is out. The Rivera Foundation isn't just about charity. It's about justice. And I will fight for it, no matter the cost." As Lena spoke, the feed was flooded with comments, shares, and hashtags. The hashtag Rivera Rising was trending worldwide. The aftermath, the broadcast shook the foundations of Blake Corp, and within hours, the ripple effect was felt. Reports flooded in. Investigations were launched. The people who had been silenced for years finally had a voice. And Lena, once the maid turned mogul, became the face of a movement for transparency, justice, and a brighter future. Eleanor Wren was forced to step down from her position at Blake Corp, her secrets exposed to the world. The truth about Lena's mother's involvement in Blake Corp was revealed, but so was her fight to protect her daughter and the sacrifices she had made. And as for Lena, she didn't need anyone to tell her what her story should be anymore. She had taken control and she had written her own narrative. The call to action now, as Lena stood at the helm of the Rivera Foundation, ready to take on the world, she knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long, but she was no longer afraid. The fight for justice had only just begun. If you believe in the power of truth, if you stand with Lena in her fight for justice, then join the movement. Subscribe, share this story, and be part of a future where no one gets to control your narrative. The Rivera Foundation is just getting started, and we need you by our side.